He looked Brock Lesnar dead in the eyes. He did not flinch. He did not back down. He did not blink. Oba Femi just accepted the most dangerous challenge in professional wrestling, and the outcome was absolutely devastating. Welcome to Wrestling Stream. Alright, Wrestling Stream Nation, welcome back. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button and smash that bell right now, because this is the channel where we cover every earth-shaking confrontation, every career-defining moment, and every seismic collision that professional wrestling delivers. And today we are talking about something that sent shockwaves through every corner of this business the moment it happened. Oba Femi, the rising force, the unstoppable presence, the next generational talent, stepped directly into the path of Brock Lesnar and said the two words that changed everything. Challenge accepted. And what followed was so intense, so physically overwhelming, and so dramatically devastating that nobody in that arena and nobody watching around the world was fully prepared for what they witnessed. So let us break every layer of this story down completely. Because this confrontation deserves the full analysis. It deserves the full respect. And it deserves to be understood in the complete context of who these two men are and what this moment truly means for the future of professional wrestling. Let us start with Oba Femi, because to understand why this confrontation is so significant, you first have to understand exactly who Oba Femi is and what he represents in professional wrestling right now. Oba Femi is not a typical rising star. He is not someone who climbed through the system slowly and carefully, collecting small wins and gradually building a reputation over years and years of patient work. Oba Femi arrived with an immediate, undeniable, almost overwhelming impact that announced his presence not as a prospect or a potential future star but as a force that was already operating at a level that demanded everyone's immediate and complete attention. The physical presence alone is extraordinary. Oba Femi is built in a way that makes you stop and genuinely stare, a combination of size, athleticism, and raw physical power that is genuinely rare in any era of professional wrestling. But what separates him from being merely physically impressive is the way he moves, the way he competes, and the way he carries himself. He has the athleticism to match the size. He has the ring awareness to match the athleticism. And he has a quiet, absolute confidence that radiates from him every single moment he is in front of a camera or inside that ring. He has been dominant. Relentlessly, impressively, undeniably dominant. Championships have been collected. Opponents have been dismissed. And with every passing week, the conversation around Oba Femi has shifted from talking about his potential to talking about his present, because his present is already something that demands to be reckoned with seriously and immediately. But accepting a challenge from Brock Lesnar is something else entirely. That is not just another step in a career progression. That is not just another opponent to overcome on the way to greater things. Accepting a challenge from Brock Lesnar is the single boldest, most consequential, most defining decision a competitor in professional wrestling can make. And Oba Femi made it without hesitation. Now let us talk about Brock Lesnar, because no analysis of this confrontation is complete without fully addressing the mountain that Oba Femi just decided to climb. Brock Lesnar is the most physically dominant competitor professional wrestling has ever produced. That is not hyperbole. That is not fan enthusiasm overstating the case. That is the cold, factual, consensus opinion of anyone who has ever watched him compete, anyone who has ever been in the ring with him, and anyone who has ever had to prepare a game plan designed to survive an encounter with him. He is a legitimate athletic phenomenon, a human being whose combination of size, strength, speed, and explosive power exists completely outside the normal parameters of what a person can be. His resume speaks for itself in the most overwhelming possible terms. Championships across multiple organizations. Victories over the biggest names in the history of this business. A track record of walking into the most high-pressure situations imaginable and performing at an absolute elite level regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the opponent, and regardless of the stakes involved. Brock Lesnar has been tested by the very best this business has ever produced. And the very best this business has ever produced has largely been found wanting. So when Brock Lesnar issues a challenge, when he steps forward and decides that someone has his attention and his interest, that is not a moment to be taken lightly. It is a moment that defines careers. It is a moment that separates the people who talk about being ready for the biggest tests from the people who actually are. Oba Femi is apparently one of the people who actually are. Now let us get into the confrontation itself, because the moment Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar shared the same space was one of the most electrically charged and visually stunning moments professional wrestling has produced in recent memory. When Brock Lesnar issued his challenge, the expectation, the assumption that hung in the air like a physical thing, was that Oba Femi would need a moment. That he would feel the weight of who he was standing across from. That some version of hesitation or calculation or self-preservation instinct would create at least a pause between the challenge being issued and the response being delivered. Because that is what happens when most people face Brock Lesnar. The reality of the situation lands on them with a weight that slows everything down. Oba Femi did not pause. The acceptance was immediate, direct, and delivered with a level of eye contact and physical presence that told Brock Lesnar, and told the entire world watching, that this young man was not the least bit intimidated by the legend standing in front of him. That moment of immediate acceptance without hesitation was itself one of the most powerful statements any competitor has made in recent wrestling memory. Because the message it sent was unmistakable. Oba Femi does not fear Brock Lesnar. Oba Femi welcomes Brock Lesnar. And Oba Femi believes completely and without reservation that he can do what very few people in the history of this business have successfully done. And then the confrontation turned physical. When these two forces of nature made contact, it was immediately obvious to everyone watching that this was something categorically different from the usual pushing and shoving that precedes most wrestling matches. When Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi collided physically, it was like watching two natural disasters meet in the same space at the same time. The force was real. The impact was real. The danger was real. And the devastating outcome that followed was a direct result of what happens when irresistible force meets what it believed was an immovable object and discovers that the question of which one gives way is more complicated and more brutal than anyone anticipated. The devastation was not one-sided. That is perhaps the most important and most fascinating detail of this entire confrontation. Brock Lesnar is someone who has walked through every challenge this business has put in front of him with a level of ease that borders on frightening. He does not typically struggle. He does not typically have to dig deep just to survive a confrontation. He imposes his will on situations because his will is simply more powerful than anything opposing it. Against Oba Femi, that formula was challenged in a way it has not been challenged in a very long time. Oba Femi gave Lesnar something to think about. Oba Femi made Lesnar feel something. And while the outcome of this confrontation was devastating, while the immediate aftermath left people wondering about the consequences for both men, the image of Oba Femi standing in that space and refusing to be simply dismissed or destroyed without making his own devastating mark on the situation is one that the entire wrestling world is going to be talking about for a very long time. Let us talk about what the devastating outcome actually means, because outcomes in professional wrestling always carry meaning beyond the immediate physical result, and this one carries more meaning than most. For Oba Femi, a devastating confrontation with Brock Lesnar is not a setback. It is a credential. It is proof of concept at the highest possible level. The competitors who face Brock Lesnar and survive with their credibility intact. The competitors who go into that fire and come out the other side still standing, still fighting, still refusing to be defined by the damage they absorbed. Those competitors earn a level of respect and a level of legitimacy that cannot be achieved any other way. Oba Femi just went through that fire. And what people saw from him in the middle of that devastating confrontation was not someone being overwhelmed and embarrassed. It was someone being tested at the absolute highest level and responding with the kind of heart and competitive fury that makes you believe he belongs exactly where he is. For Brock Lesnar, the message from this confrontation is equally significant. He wanted to make a statement. He wanted to establish dominance. He wanted to remind the world and remind the locker room that he remains the most dangerous and most formidable competitor in professional wrestling. And while he absolutely inflicted damage, while the devastating aspects of this confrontation certainly featured his fingerprints, the fact that Oba Femi made it as competitive and as physical and as genuinely difficult as he did means that the statement Lesnar was trying to make is not as clean and as simple as he would have liked it to be. Brock Lesnar wanted to end this conversation quickly and definitively. Oba Femi made sure it was neither quick nor definitive. And that means this story is far from over. Let us talk about where this goes from here, because the confrontation has happened, the challenge has been accepted, and the devastating outcome has been delivered. But professional wrestling rarely ends at the first collision. The best stories build from the wreckage of the opening salvo towards something even more spectacular. A proper match between Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar, A sanctioned, structured competition inside that ring with championships or pride or both on the line, is one of the most compelling matchups that professional wrestling can offer right now. The stylistic elements are fascinating. The contrast in experience versus raw ascending talent is compelling. The question of whether youth and athleticism and the hunger of someone with everything to prove can overcome the experience and the legendary physical dominance of someone who has beaten everyone this business has ever offered, that question is worth an enormous amount of storytelling and an enormous amount of genuine athletic drama. The wrestling world is watching. The locker room is watching. And both Oba Femi and Brock Lesnar know that what happens next between them is going to define a significant piece of both their legacies going forward. Oba Femi accepted the challenge. The devastation was real. But so was the statement he made by surviving it and refusing to be simply erased by the most dominant force professional wrestling has ever produced. That statement matters. That statement echoes. And that statement is the foundation on which everything that comes next is going to be built. And that, Wrestling Stream Nation, is exactly where we stand. Oba Femi accepted the challenge. The confrontation with Brock Lesnar was devastating. And this story is just getting started in the most explosive way possible. We will be right here on Wrestling Stream covering every development as this rivalry builds toward what promises to be one of the most anticipated matches professional wrestling has seen in years. Subscribe right now if you have not already. Hit that like button if this breakdown had you locked in from the very first second. And get into those comments because I need everything from you. Do you think Oba Femi can beat Brock Lesnar? Who came out of this confrontation looking stronger? And when they finally meet inside that ring for a proper match, who walks out on top? The comment section is completely yours. Let us talk about it together. Until next time, stay passionate, stay loud, and never stop loving this sport. I'm your host, and this is Wrestling Stream.